Mysterious figures? Swann once again projected his consciousness onto the moon. Following the coordinates provided by Mr. A, the head of the mysterious mission, to inspect various locations one by one. Some places had nothing, but in others, Swann saw strange things he couldn't comprehend. So he sketched what he saw, and these drawings were quickly collected by Mr. A. So, what exactly did Swann see? He described towers, machinery, multicolored lights, and strange buildings. Some structures looked like bridges, one even extended outward without touching the ground. He also saw domes of various sizes, circular objects with platforms on top, and large cross-shaped structures. He observed small saucer-shaped objects with windows. Some parked in craters, others in caves, and some in what looked like airplane hangars. Due to the lack of reference points on the moon, it was hard for Swann to judge the scale accurately, but he remarked that some of the objects seemed enormously large. Swann also saw long tubular structures and tractor-like machines busily moving up and down the hills. There were long, straight roads and circular holes on the surface and around craters, which appeared related to mining or excavation activities. As his consciousness drew closer to a crater, Swann could see a thin mist inside the structure, the same eerie green glow, and even floating dust in the air. Although he believed there shouldn't be any atmosphere on the moon, he felt the presence of air and simply described what he experienced. Suddenly, Swann's heart tightened. He saw humanoid beings busily working. They were digging into cliffs and hillsides. What surprised Swann was that these beings seemed to be completely naked. Swann humorously remarked, "It looks like they've created a warm and comfortable working environment. But why is everyone naked?" Indeed, many people have been puzzled by this. Commonly described greys are often portrayed as unclothed. If their technology is so advanced, why not wear proper clothing? According to African shaman Credo Mutwa, humans only think they're naked. What we see is actually their spacesuits. Their true forms remain unseen. Not impossible, right? Anyway, let's get back to Swann. Suddenly, Swann felt that something was off on the moon. The beings became agitated, communicating with each other using gestures. And two of them pointed directly in Swann's direction. His first instinct was to escape and hide, which he seemed to manage, as he then lost the visual connection. Swann told Mr. A, "I think they sensed me. They pointed toward my direction." But how could they do that? Unless they have powerful psychic abilities too. Mr. A replied in a calm, low voice. Return from there immediately. Mr. A had already known that these beings possessed telepathic sensitivity. After returning, Swann sat in stunned silence. If these beings could perceive his presence, could they track him down? He had only used consciousness to observe. How could they detect it? Could it be that consciousness is a kind of matter, capable of creating ripples across space, and being sensitive to those ripples could perceive it? Mr. A closed the file folder and said to Swann, "Our work is done. Tomorrow, you'll return to New York." In his book Penetration, Swann revealed that he never told anyone about the alien base on the moon, not only because of the 10-year secrecy agreement with Mr. A, but also because he knew that remote viewing could never be 100% accurate, at least not at his level back then. He didn't want to be seen as crazy. Still, he wanted to share this bizarre and incredible experience. Indeed, the moon is surrounded by many unsolved mysteries. Studies suggest the moon might be hollow. It's designed to always face Earth with one side. Does this mean the moon is artificial? What's on the far side and inside the moon? Could it be the alien base Swann saw? Apollo astronauts once reported encountering mysterious phenomena and seeing UFO-like crafts. Could this be why human missions to the moon halted for nearly half a century? The lake encounter. Swann and Mr. A lost contact for about half a year. Later, they met a few more times, and during their final encounter, which Swann believed took place in Alaska, Mr. A took him to witness something truly unexplainable. One late night in July 1977, Swann followed Mr. A and two military men he called the twins. They landed via helicopter in a desolate, dark location. Then they boarded an unmarked van. In the vehicle, Swann changed into a heat-insulated suit and removed all metal items. After a 2-hour drive through winding mountain roads, they parked beneath pine trees. Mr. A emphasized the need for absolute silence. Swann nodded. They hiked into the wilderness in silence for about 45 minutes. The twins wore night vision goggles, while Swann could barely see. At times, he had to be guided to avoid creeks and holes. Eventually, they reached the edge of a lake. "What do we do?" Swann asked Mr. A. "Observe," he replied quietly, urging Swann to remain completely still and silent. He explained that they could detect heat, sound, and movement and were extremely sensitive. Swann widened his eyes. The four of them sat silently for what felt like forever. Swann felt like he was turning into a rock. Suddenly, the twins gave a signal. Mr. A whispered, "It's starting. Don't make a sound. Don't move unless we tell you." At first, Swann saw nothing, just fog rising from the lake. But the gray mist began to glow, first in neon blue, shifting to vivid purple, then red, violet, and yellow lightning shot in various directions. Then something transparent appeared, visible only by the reflection of the water. It was a triangular craft, and it began to grow in size. The craft flew over their heads. It felt like a magnetic field passed through their bodies. Suddenly, a gem-like red laser beam shot out from the craft. One of the twins whispered, "Damn, it's scanning this area. They're about to find us." In moments, the red beam toppled pine trees. The craft, now over 30 meters wide, kept expanding. Everything happened in eerie silence, no sound at all, except for the crashing trees. Then, the deer and porcupines in the woods began to fall. It seemed the craft intended to eliminate all living things in the area. Without thinking, they ran for their lives. Swann was mostly dragged by the twins. As he looked back one final time, he saw the lake water being sucked into the craft, like a reverse waterfall. On the way back, everyone was silent. Mr. A asked Swann what he had sensed. Swann gave a wry smile. Remote viewing required a peaceful environment, focus, and calm. Just now, he almost died. There was no way he could have used psychic powers in that situation. But Swann gazed out the window, trying to process what he had seen. A suddenly appearing craft able to change size, absorbing lake water. He came to a conclusion. It might have been a drone on a resupply mission. Aliens mining on the moon could be sourcing water from Earth. Mr. A smiled, neither confirming nor denying. After that final meeting, Swann never saw Mr. A or the twins again. To be honest, reading this UFO encounter raises a question. Why did Mr. A want Swann to witness this in person? Wouldn't remote viewing be safer and more in line with Swann's abilities? We're not doubting Swann's story. He was a CIA-certified psychic, involved in many classified experiments. These can be verified in CIA declassified documents. Those who worked with Swann considered him 100% trustworthy. He didn't boast in his book. He candidly shared his thoughts, even when things seemed illogical or unexplainable. As for Mr. A's intentions, if all of this was real, maybe he was trying to give Swann a clue, to use remote viewing to investigate that specific area in Alaska. It seems Swann never pursued that investigation, or at least we have no record of it. But his colleague, another top CIA psychic, Pat Price, did. And what he discovered was astonishing. Now it's time for Pat Price to take the stage. The Psychic Detective. In Part A, we introduced how physicist Dr. Russell Targ and engineer Dr. Harold Puthoff formed a team at the Stanford Research Institute SRI to conduct experiments on extrasensory perception ESP. The first expert they recruited was Ingo Swann, and the second was Pat Price. Pat Price was a retired police chief. His calm and introverted personality was the complete opposite of Swann's humorous and extroverted nature. The two complemented each other and worked very well together. Before joining SRI, Pat Price had used his psychic abilities to assist in solving several criminal cases. However, at the time, he believed it was merely intuition, a sort of accurate gut feeling. It wasn't until after his retirement, when he had more time to focus on this, that he realized his talent went beyond intuition. Today, Pat Price is regarded as one of the most gifted telepaths in history. But talk is cheap. Let's look at one of the most sensational cases of the time. The Patricia Hearst kidnapping case. Patricia Hearst was the granddaughter of American publishing magnate William Randolph Hearst. In early February 1974, she was kidnapped by a terrorist organization in Berkeley, California. The entire United States was following the case, and all media cameras were focused on the police handling the investigation. The pressure was immense, and the police were willing to try anything to find Hearst, including psychic powers. So, they reached out to the Stanford Research Institute. Pat Price, along with Targ and Puthoff, arrived at the police station. Pat Price asked the police for a mug, book a photo book of suspects, and flipped through it page by page. Suddenly, he pointed to a man named Donald DeFries and said, "This is the mastermind." Pat Price then described a vision he had seen. The car used in Hearst's abduction had been abandoned beside a highway, near two white oil storage tanks. He also said that Patricia was being held in an apartment nearby, and even described the layout of the room. One detective said he recognized the place. So, the police went to check it out, and they really did find the car. However, the operation to rescue Patricia wasn't smooth. According to Targ and Puthoff in the documentary Third Eye Spies, this was due to a lack of proper collaboration. Understandably so. If the Berkeley police had relied solely on psychic visions and carried out random raids, what if they had gotten it wrong? The entire nation was watching them. For the Berkeley police, it was acceptable to gather all possible information through any means, including psychic ones. But any actual operations had to be cautious, extremely cautious. Since today's episode isn't about the Patricia Hearst case specifically, we'll skip over the middle and go straight to the result. In short, it was confirmed that Patricia had indeed been held in that area. She was kept inside a closet in an apartment, and the furnishings matched Pat Price's description exactly. Pat Price and the others were later commended by the Berkeley police. In fact, in the 1970s, the study of ESP was just beginning to gain traction in the US. Whether it was the CIA, the Defense Intelligence Agency, DIA, or other related agencies, they were all intrigued yet skeptical about psychic abilities. However, after a security incident involving the National Security Agency (NSA), all these organizations began launching their own ESP research programs. And the ones who stirred up this trouble? Pat Price and Ingo Swann? Their actions nearly got the entire experimental team disbanded. So, what exactly did they do?
Subscribe and hit the notification bell so you don't miss what's coming next. Share it, because some stories are meant to be discovered together. And stay curious. I'll see you in the next chapter.